how clothing changed due the course of history. Cloth is very important because it is a part of our life. Everyone wears some dress or some cloth, and in all the society almost, they have certain rules. Some may be quite strict, that what men, women and children should dress like. That is, they define the identity of people. If someone is wearing a turban, you will identify him as a Sikh. All these dresses, they shape our notions of grace and beauty. That is, the ideas of the modesty and shame. But as the time changed, society changed, these notions or this way of dresses or clothing also changes or changed. And the emergence of modern world also changed the clothing dramatically. So we will talk about the 19th and 20th century, that is the modern period clothing. Why are these centuries important? Why we are talking about this century? First of all, this was the age of democratic revolutions, and also the capitalist markets evolved. Development of capitalist market in the 18th century in Europe, and most people would dress according to their regional codes or ethics. That is, the clothes which are available in their region, and also the cost of the material defines what they are going to wear. And on the basis of what class they belong, what gender they have and the status in their social hierarchy, the clothing styles are strictly regulated. And after the 18th century, as Europe colonized or European countries colonized most of the world, these democratic ideals and the industrial society also enhanced, and this completely changed the idea of dressing and its meaning. People could use styles and materials because there are different mix of cultures now. The European culture of dress and the colonial culture, or the colonies where they ruled. So the culture and locations also mattered, and this is how the Western dress styles for men were adopted worldwide. So we'll see, because we have already learned about French Revolution, how it transformed the political and social life, and also the dress codes. That is, the revolution swept away, condemned, or you can say it, after the revolution there was no laws for the dress codes. Previously, sumptuary laws were there. So what were these laws, and how these laws were vanished, or were, you can say, this revolution ate this law. So sumptuary laws and social hierarchy. In medieval Europe, dress codes were sometimes imposed upon the members of different layers of society. So there were actual laws for that. That is, if this is the hierarchy, what these people are going to wear are decided by them. So there are the laws being defined, and these laws were strictly regulated and followed also. From 1294 to the time of the French Revolution in 1789, everyone was, or especially those inferior sector, should follow the sumptuary laws. That is, this law tried to control the behavior of certain class. They want to prevent them from wearing certain clothes or consuming certain foods or beverages, especially alcohol, and hunting games. These items of clothing a person could purchase per year was also regulated, that you cannot purchase more than that. And not only by income, but what social rank you have in this sumptuary law scheme. The material of the cloth was also being defined. Only royalty can wear materials like ermine and fur and silk, velvet and brocade. Others, no, they were debarred from these type of expensive materials. So French Revolution, as I just said, that this ate away the sumptuary laws, so they ended the distinctions. As we have seen the Jacobin clubs, they called themselves as sans-culottes. They wanted to distinguish themselves from the aristocracy. Because the aristocracy would wear fashionable dresses like knee breeches. And this sans-culotte literally meant without knee breeches. Now everyone the people who were sans-culottes, or they were referring them to be, they were wearing, men and women, all they were wearing was the cloth that gave them comfort. And also the color, French color, the tricolor, blue, white and red, this became very popular because it marked the patriotism in the people. And there are other political symbols also, like the red cap people were wearing for liberty, long trousers and the revolutionary cockade that is pinned on their hat. This is the equality idea they wanted to portray, that is, they were clothing very simply. Simplicity of clothing is their idea of equality. So we have certain word here, like the cockade, that is cap usually worn on one side, and ermine, this is again a type of fur. If you see here, this is an upper class couple. See what they are wearing. Everything is you can say dressed, designed, and they have a different kind of material they used for dresses they made. Then we talked about the tricolor. This is the women of the middle class wearing a tricolor dress. Here we have volunteers during the French Revolution, and here is the distinction between an aristocratic couple and here a sans-culotte family. You can see the difference in the clothes they are wearing. Then the clothing and notions of beauty. Now, sumptuary law did end, but the European societies, they can easily wear in any way. But the French Revolution had raised the question of equality also, and it wanted to end the aristocratic privileges and those laws maintained by these privileges. But the distance or difference between these social hierarchy people, it remained. Poor people could not dress like rich. They cannot eat same food. But there is no law now. The law is not going to say anything. Now what they are earning, sumptuary laws were ended, but what they are earning, this defined the rich and the poor people, what they are going to wear. So the notion of what was beautiful, ugly, proper, improper, and decent and vulgar, this actually differed. If you see, I'll show you a picture of a girl. She is wearing a very tight dress. And what was the reason? If you see, most of the women are wearing this dress, and this girl at a very tender age is supposed to wear this. So style of clothing, it has emphasized difference between men and women. In Victorian England, the women, as you see here in the childhood, were supposed to be docile, dutiful, submissive and obedient. And they also think that the ideal woman should have an idea of bearing pain and suffering. And men, they were supposed to be serious. They were assumed to be or expected to be strong, independent, aggressive. And women, frivolous, delicate, passive and docile. So this also reflected in their clothing. If you see, from childhood, this girl was tightly laced up and dressed in stays. So stays is a support as part of women's dress to hold the body straight. So the effort was to restrict their growth of body, that means they don't get obese, also contain them within small molds like these dresses. When the girl gets older, she has to wear corsets. So tightly laced, small, twisted women were admired as attractive, elegant, and graceful. So this clothing played a part in creating the image of frail, submissive Victorian women. But how does women react to this? Many women, because they are fed like this, they are in this society, so they think that this dress is okay for them. But not all. This torture and pain, they just accept it as normal, but not all. By the 1830s, women in England began agitating for democratic rights, the suffrage movement, that is the right to vote, that is suffrage. Suffragettes wanted the right for women to vote. So as this suffrage movement developed, many would want the reforms for dress also. That is, these tight dresses, people are, or the women especially, are in this side that they cause deformities and illness among these young girls, because their bodies are restricted. The body growth will be restricted, and this also hampered blood circulation. The muscles remained underdeveloped, and also at a later age their spines got bent. And most of the doctor, they were subjected to, or they come across this kind of complaint every now and then. So these are all the sources that says us that what we are learning is quite true. So there are certain words. Busk, that is a strip of wood, whalebone or steel in front of the corset to stiffen and support it. Then pabulum, anything essential to maintain life and growth. So this was the story of England. But what was happening in America? If you see, this is a picture of a woman who is wearing a very you can say big gown, and this is touching the floor. Can you imagine how she will be able to move or cook or take care of her kids? Very difficult. So this in America also, there was long skirts women were wearing, and this swept the ground and collected the filth and dirt, and this caused illness. And these skirts were so voluminous, it was so difficult to handle, and if they want to work or earn, this hampered this. So reform of this dress would change the position of the women. That is, if the dress is convenient and comfortable, they can go and earn their livelihood. In 1870s, National Women's Suffrage Association, which is headed by Mrs. Stanton, and the American Women's Suffrage Association, dominated by Lucy Stone, they both campaigned for the dress reform. And the argument was simple: just simplify the dress, shorten the skirt, and abandon the corsets. So on both sides of the Atlantic, that is on the right side we see England, on the UK, on the right side we see USA. Both places the movement for rational dress reform was going on. Now the reformers faced ridicule and hostility. Some tried to go ahead, but because of the persistent attacks, they just stepped back. By the end of 19th century, things changed. Why this changed? Because there were a variety of pressures. Though those times came with new values. And what are these times? New times. What are the reasons for the dress change? Most of these many of these changes were possible in Britain because of the introduction of new materials and technologies. Right? This would change the because of the new working condition for women, because they need to work, or they are working, they can't wear those dresses. So we'll just talk about what happened. So before the 17th century, women in Britain, they possessed a very few clothes made of flax, linen and wool. very difficult to clean these kind of dresses. But by 1600, when Indian trade started, this bought cheap and easy to maintain Indian chintz, and this reached European countries also, and this increased the size of their wardrobes. Now, during the Industrial Revolution in 19th century, Britain started manufacturing a lot of cotton and also exporting it to India. But when it is exporting to other countries, that is wider section of people in Europe, they were very much liking this cotton. And by the earlier 20th century, artificial fibers also, means the cloths which are made up of artificial fibers, they also came into picture because they were easy to maintain and wash. And in the late 1870s, heavy restrictive underclothes, this which has created such a storm in the pages of Women magazine, also were discarded. Clothes are now lighter, shorter and simpler. There's a word came, chintz, cotton cloth printed with designs and flowers. So from the Hindi word chint. So we have two pictures here. If you see, this picture is showing the skirts being taken up by these women, and these skirts became shorter and frills also were done away with. And here you see women working because of the First World War. Women started working, or they have to work in the different factories. Now if they are able to work, they have to change the clothing styles also. By 1915, the hemline of skirt rose dramatically to mid-calf. It was not until 1914 it happened here. But why this happened suddenly? Because of the war. The changes in women clothing was brought up because of World War. Now many European women, they just stopped wearing jewelry, luxurious clothes, and also upper class women, they intermingled, or they mixed with the other class. So the dress also mixed. The clothes got shorter, as I showed you in the picture, during the First World War, 1914 to 1918, because of necessity. By 1917, over 700,000 women in Britain were employed in ammunition factories. And this working uniform was blouse and trouser and just a scarf on top of it, and later replaced by khaki overall and caps. Also the bright colors they just stopped using it as the war dragged on, and thereby the cloth became plainer and simpler. Skirts became shorter, and also women started wearing trousers, and then women also started cutting their hair just for convenience. By the 20th century, the dress which are plain, subtle, these style came into, you can say, reflect seriousness and professionalism. School dresses, because school dresses also people wanted to have a plain dressing, and they just in the school they discouraged the ornamentation. Women were now into gymnastic and games, so they need to wear the clothes which are suitable for this game, which are comfortable and convenient for them. So this is the history of clothing, how this is linked to the history of society. And if you see that because of certain changes, because of the people mindset, or you can say the changes because of the war, or women started going to work, this all changed, and now we see a different dresses.